The jungle on Lorex 7 was alive with sound. Strange birds screeched, wind moved through red leaves, insects clicked from every direction, and running through the thick trees was her. She wasn't human. She wasn't wearing armor. She didn't carry a weapon, but her silver-blue skin glowed faintly. Her long white hair was wild. Her feet were bare. Blood ran down one leg where a branch had cut her. Her name was Talene, and she was running for her life. Behind her, alien hunters moved like shadows, big, armored, cold. They wore black suits and their faces were covered. They didn't speak. They tracked her with heat scanners and motion sensors. To them, she wasn't a person. She was the prize. Talene's breath came in sharp gasps. She dodged between trees, leaped over roots, climbed a hill, only to slide down the other side. She had been running for hours, days maybe. No food, no water. But she knew what would happen if they caught her. She had seen it before. Others like her, hunted, tied, dragged away, sold like animals. She wouldn't be next. But they were close now. She could hear the mechanical click of their boots, could feel the vibration in the ground. She had no strength left. And then, snap. Something yanked her up into the air, a net, tight, glowing, electric. She screamed as the current hit her body. She twisted, kicked, but it was no use. The net spun and tightened. She hung 5 feet above the jungle floor, trapped between branches like prey in a spider's web. The hunters appeared below. 3 of them, tall, calm, one pointed. There she is. Rare species. Price just doubled. Another laughed. Should've run faster. They aimed a capture gun. A small dart hissed. Talene braced for the pain, but it never came. Bang! The gun was shot out of the hunter's hands. They turned, startled. From the side of the hill, a human man stood with a long rifle. Dust on his clothes, a broken hat on his head. But his aim was steady. "Drop your weapons," he shouted. "Step away from her." The hunters laughed. "Who are you supposed to be?" "Local watcher," the man replied. "And she's under my protection now." They raised their rifles. He fired first. One shot hit a tree, on purpose. The tree shook, branches snapped. A horned jungle beast came crashing down, angry and wild, charging through the group. In the chaos, the man ran to the net. "Hang on," he yelled to her. He jumped and slashed the ropes with a knife. They both crashed to the ground. Talene gasped. Her legs wouldn't move. He scooped her up without asking, and ran. Behind them the hunters shouted. But the man knew these woods better. He moved through narrow paths, over hidden logs, under hanging vines. Talene didn't speak. Her body shook, but she held onto his jacket with weak fingers. Not in fear, in hope. They reached a small hill, a cave hidden behind thick leaves. He pushed inside, breathing hard. Laid her down on a blanket. Lit a small heater, only then did he speak again. "You're safe now." She looked up at him, eyes wide. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. He poured water into a tin cup, gently lifted her head and helped her drink. "Easy," he said. "You're not a target anymore." She whispered one word. "Why?" He smiled, softly. "Because someone had to care." Outside, the jungle roared, but inside the cave it was quiet. Warm, and for the first time in days, Talene closed her eyes. Not from fear, but from relief. As she slept, the man watched the jungle through a scope. He didn't know her name yet. Didn't know her story. But he knew one thing. The hunters would come back, and next time, he would be ready. Talene woke slowly. The air was warm, the floor soft. The pain in her legs was dull now, not sharp. Her body still ached, but it no longer felt like it was falling apart. Her eyes opened to the soft orange glow of a portable lamp. The walls were made of stone and vine. She was in a cave, safe, and across the room a man sat on a crate, cleaning his rifle. He looked up. You're awake." She tried to sit up, but her arms trembled. He stood and came over. "Careful. You took a bad hit from that trap net." She leaned back, breathing slow. He knelt beside her. "I'm Grant," he said simply. "Human. Civilian scout. You're lucky I was nearby." Talene blinked. She looked at the cup beside her bed. He noticed. "Thirsty?" She nodded once. He helped her sip. His hands were rough, but gentle. For a while, neither of them said anything. Then, Grant stood and tossed more wood into the heater. "I don't know your name," he said, "but I don't care what they call you, you're not an animal." Her voice was barely more than a whisper. "They call us prey." Grant froze. "You speak?" She nodded, slowly, but her voice cracked. He moved back to the crate. "They said, you were wild," he said. "That's what they said about you, the whole species." Talene looked down at her hands. "We weren't always like this." Grant leaned forward, elbows on knees. "What happened?" She hesitated, then said softly, "We were singers, not fighters. Gardeners, not hunters. But they came for us anyway." She looked into the fire. "I was taken when I was young. I escaped. I don't know how many are left." Her voice shook. "I ran for so long, I forgot who I was." Grant frowned. "You don't remember your name?" She hesitated, then touched her own chest. "I think I was called Talene." It felt strange, saying it out loud, like speaking, a word that belonged to someone else. But Grant smiled. "That's a good name," he said. "Talene." He reached into his backpack and pulled out a dry cloth, handed it to her. "For your cuts." She looked at the cloth like it was treasure, like no one had ever handed her anything without taking something first. Later, as the fire burned low, Talene asked, "Why did you help me?" Grant thought for a moment, then said, "Because I saw your eyes, and I knew you didn't belong in a cage." That night she couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because for the first time in years, she was allowed to feel safe. She looked at Grant as he lay across the cave, arms behind his head, eyes closed. She whispered to the quiet, "Talene, my name is Talene." And the cave, like a witness, held, her voice gently. The next morning, footprints in the dirt. Not Grant's, not hers. Fresh, heavy, clawed. Grant crouched near the edge of the cave, examining them. Talene stood behind him, cloak wrapped tight around her. "They've found us," she said. He nodded. "We've got one day, maybe less." She looked out at the jungle. "They never stop. They don't get tired." Grant smiled, faintly. "Then it's a good thing I do my best work tired." As they began packing the shelter, a distant sound echoed through the trees. A hunter's call. Low, metallic, cold. Talene stepped beside Grant. "If they catch me again, they'll kill you first." Grant chambered a round into his rifle. "Let them try." The jungle didn't sleep. Even in daylight, it whispered danger. Leaves shifted when nothing moved. Vines curled tighter, and high above, strange birds flew in circles, nervous. Grant and Talene stood outside the cave, watching the red sky change to gold. Grant's rifle hung on his back. Talene carried nothing, but her eyes were sharper now, clearer. No longer just scared. Now ready. "Are you sure you want to stay and fight?" Grant asked. Talene didn't look at him. She stared at the trees. "They'll never stop hunting me." She turned to him, soft voice, steady gaze. "So this time, I don't run." They spent the day preparing. Grant set up motion alarms made from scrap tech and broken drones. He placed shock traps under loose leaves, tied swinging branches with sharpened spikes, built cover walls out of fallen logs and vines. Talene watched, closely. "I used to grow trees," she said suddenly. He looked at her. "I made food bloom. Colors. Life. My hands healed things." She showed him her fingers, still soft, despite the scars. Now she was learning to defend, not heal. At dusk, they ate quietly. Grant handed her half a protein bar. Not much, he said. Talene chewed slowly. It's more than I ever had in cages. After a moment, she asked, "Why do you care what happens to me?" Grant wiped his hands on a cloth. "I don't like bullies. Even alien bullies?" He shrugged. "Pain looks the same in every species." That night as they rested, Talene didn't sleep. She sat near the edge of the cave watching fireflies blink in the dark. She whispered her own name again, over and over. Talene, 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 like she was stitching it back into her soul. Early the next morning, a crack echoed through the jungle. The birds stopped singing, then came the sound, low, mechanical, marching. Grant stood, rifle in hand. "They're here." 3 hunters entered the clearing. Same black armor, same blank faces. They moved like machines. Slow, certain. Talene stepped out from the cave, standing beside Grant. No hiding. No fear. One hunter pointed. "Subject 034, surrender now." Talene's voice was quiet but firm. "I have a name." The hunter didn't care. He lifted a tranquilizer cannon. Grant fired first. The hunter dropped hard, shoulder. Armor cracked. The other 2 split and moved fast. One took cover behind a tree. The other aimed at Talene. Grant dove, knocked her down. Thwack! A dart hit the rock where her head had been. Grant rolled and fired again. Missed. Talene leapt to her feet, breathing fast. "Let me help." He tossed her a stun rod. She didn't swing wildly. She moved with grace. Quick, quiet, like someone who had once danced through forests, not run from them. She dodged a strike, ducked low, and jabbed the rod into a hunter's back. Electricity sparked. He fell. Grant finished the last one with a shot to the leg. Silence returned. Birds began to sing again. Talene stood, chest rising and falling. Her hands shook, but not from fear, from adrenaline. She looked at Grant. "I didn't run." He nodded, proud. "No, you didn't." That night they burned the hunter's gear in a pit. The fire glowed blue and hot. Talene sat beside it, her voice low. "They'll send more." Grant stared into the flames. "Then we'll make sure they stop coming." She turned to him. "How?" He looked at her, eyes sharp. "By making this place the one spot on this planet where prey fights back." In a distant warship above the planet, a new voice entered the system. "Subject 034 still at large. 2 units lost. Human involvement confirmed." The commander narrowed his eyes. "Then we send the elites, and we bring them back alive." Because now it wasn't just a hunt. It was a challenge. The jungle was different now, no longer just a place to hide. Now it was hers. Talene walked barefoot through the soft red grass, her body no longer tense, but alert. Her back straight, her breathing calm. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was learning to fight. Nearby, Grant watched her silently. She moved between trees like wind, no noise, no fear. He'd taught her how to spot weak branches, how to hear the difference between bird songs and warning calls, how to hold a stun rod with purpose, not panic. But the fire in her eyes? That wasn't his doing. That was hers alone. They trained each day, not with heavy weapons, not with machines, just instinct, balanced speed. Grant would toss a stick into the air. Talene would hit it mid-fall with perfect aim. She was fast, faster than any hunter expected. One evening, as the sky turned violet, Talene sat near the river. Her reflection rippled across the water. She touched the edge with her fingers. "I never saw myself for years," she whispered. Grant sat down beside her. "Why?" "They kept us in steel rooms, no mirrors, no names, just numbers." She looked at him. "But when you said my name, Talene, it was like the first time I could see my own face." Grant didn't reply. He didn't need to. He just listened. That night they heard it, the hum of a stealth ship overhead. It didn't flash, it didn't land, it just scanned and vanished Talene stood outside the shelter, eyes to the sky. They're coming again. Grant nodded. They always do. But this time, she didn't hide. She walked to the clearing and buried small traps in the earth. Thin wires, sleeping gas pods, pressure sticks. She set vines with spikes. Hung stones that would fall loud and fast. And then she looked at the last trap, an old capture net, the same kind they had used on her. She picked it up, ripped it, burned it. No more cages. The next day, they came. Not grunts this time, but elites, fast, armored, trained in jungle combat. 3 dropped from the sky. No words, no warnings, just cold movement. Grant aimed his rifle but didn't shoot. He looked at Talene. You ready? She didn't answer. She ran. Not away, toward them. One guard raised his arm. Talene slid under it, swift like lightning, and slammed her stun rod into his back. The second swung low. She leapt over him, twisting midair, kicked his helmet off. He stumbled. She was on him before he could speak. One hit to the throat. Down. The third tried to grab her from behind. Grant moved in, fast, threw a flash pellet. Talene turned, eyes closed, and struck the third in the chest. He dropped. It was over. In seconds, 3 elite hunters, down by her. Talene stood breathing hard, staring at her hands. Blood on her palm, a bruise on her arm, but no cuffs, no chains, only power. Grant stepped beside her. You okay? She looked up at him, eyes glowing gold in the sun. I used to fear them, she said. Now, I think they should fear me. That night, Talene sat by the fire. She didn't shake. She didn't flinch at jungle sounds. She stared into the flames like someone who had seen death and chosen life instead. She whispered a promise to the stars. For every one of us they hunted, I will rise stronger. I will teach others, and I will never run again. Grant heard her from the shelter and smiled. She doesn't need saving anymore, he thought. She's saving herself now. Far away, in a hidden command center, an old hunter replayed drone footage of the fight. He paused on the moment Talene stood over the 3 fallen elites. He leaned forward and whispered, She's evolving. Then turned to his team. Next, time we take her alive and we bring the human too. I want to know what happens when you break someone who believes they're free. The fire was low. Ash floated softly in the air as Talene sat by the edge of the flames, legs folded, eyes distant. She had just defeated elite hunters, but tonight, she looked heavier. Not tired from battle, tired from memory. Grant noticed the change. He poured her a cup of hot water and handed it over without a word. She took it but didn't drink. Instead, she asked, Do you know what my people were called? Before the hunts began? Grant shook his head. No one ever said. They just called you trackable, or target. Talene nodded slowly. We were called the Alari. In our language, it means keepers of balance. She stared into the flame. Long ago, we healed dying forests. We sang to oceans. We helped lost animals find their herds. We didn't have guns, didn't build walls. We believed everything should grow, not be conquered. Grant listened in silence. Talene continued, but that made us easy to break. She closed her eyes. They came in ships, bright lights, steel voices. At first, they just watched, took samples. Then one day, one of them grabbed a child and ran. Grant's eyes narrowed. They tested us, took us, sold us. Talene looked. Do you know what they called us in the auction halls? He said nothing. She answered herself. Elegant prey. She showed him her back, just for a moment. Scars. Thin, old, almost invisible under her glowing skin. That's what they paid extra for. Untouched skin with natural marks. They called them decorations. Grant's stomach twisted. He had fought in wars, seen people burned, shot, but nothing made him angrier than the quiet pain in her, Voice. Do others like you still live? He asked. Talene nodded. Scattered. Hiding. Some on broken moons. Some in cold cages. Some... She paused. Stopped speaking long ago. Then her voice grew firmer. But if they see me, if they know I'm still alive, maybe they'll remember who they were. Grant nodded slowly. Then we send a message. Talene tilted her head. How? Grant walked to his pack and pulled out an old distress beacon, damaged, but functional. This used to send Mayday calls. I can change it. Send a signal with coordinates. Talene stood. If even one hears it. He finished for her. It will be worth it. They worked together through the night. Talene rewired circuits with steady hands. Grant rerouted the power. At sunrise, the beacon lit up with a steady hum. A simple message echoed into the stars. To all Alari, you are not alone. Come to the green world. We are no longer prey. Days passed. The jungle stayed quiet. But every morning, Talene woke up early and walked to the high ridge. She waited, not in fear, but in hope. Then one day, she saw it. A small, quiet ship. Not military. Not loud. It landed far off near the river. Talene ran. By the time Grant caught up, she was already standing in front of the ship. The door opened, and 3 figures stepped out. Tall, thin, glowing. Like her, their eyes widened when they saw her. Talene, one whispered. You survived. Talene's voice shook. I fought. I remembered. I found someone who saw me. She turned to Grant. The other Alari bowed their heads, and for the first time in a long time, Grant saw tears in her eyes. That night, they sat by the fire. Now 5 around the circle. Grant passed fruit. The Alari sang a quiet melody. Talene watched the flames and said softly, They took everything from us, but they couldn't take this. She placed her hand over her heart. This fire was never theirs. Up in orbit, a stealth ship received the same signal. The hunter commander narrowed his eyes. She's gathering them. He turned to his crew. Then we gather too. We burn the forest, and we take back what we lost, even if we have to kill her to do it. The jungle had seen many things: blood, fire, traps, fear, but never this. Laughter, soft, new, strange. It came from the Alari children as they ran barefoot through the tall red grass, their glowing skin catching sunlight, their joy unchained. Talene stood on a small hill, watching them. Eyes full. She couldn't remember the last time she had seen her people smile, and now here they were, free, because someone dared to fight. Grant hammered another support post into the ground beside her. Sweat rolled down his face, but he smiled. Another. HUD finished, he said. At this rate, we'll need a town name. Talene looked at him. Sanctuary. He paused, nodded. Yeah, that fits. They had been building for days. Every arriving Alari brought a story and a skill. One shaped stone with their bare hands. Another sang to plants, making them grow faster. One elder used her body heat to purify water from the river. They weren't soldiers, but they were survivors. And together, they were creating something the hunters had never expected: a home. Talene taught the young ones how to move silently, not to hide, but to listen. She showed them the difference between fear and awareness. Your blood remembers the forests, she said. You are not weak. You were only waiting to be called back. At night, they gathered around a large fire, circle. Talene stood at its center and spoke. We were hunted. We were scattered. But now we return. Not with weapons, but with roots. We are the forest. We are the flame. The Alari echoed her words, their voices like wind through leaves. And from the shadows, Grant watched her speak, not as prey, but as a leader. Still, danger crept closer. One morning they found a metal drone impaled on a tree trunk. Burned. Cracked. But Watching, Grant knelt beside it. Scout drone, he muttered. Stealth model. Someone's getting closer. Talene placed her hand on the bark where it had hit. She closed her eyes. The trees are angry, she said. They remember fire. They held a meeting. Some Alari wanted to run again. Some wanted to fight. Talene raised her hand. We stay, she said. Not because it is easy, but because if we run again, we will never stop. Grant stepped forward. If they attack, we defend. Not just with weapons, but with each other. He looked at the small outpost, then the people, then Talene. We didn't build this with guns. We built it with hope. That evening, Talene sat beside Grant on the lookout ridge. The stars shone bright overhead. The hunters will come, she said. He nodded. I know. But I'm not afraid. She turned to him. I used to think I had to be alone to survive. She reached for his hand. But you showed me that healing isn't weakness. In the distance, a young Alari boy lit a small torch. One by one, others lit theirs. All around the jungle clearing, circles of light glowed in the dark. A message for the sky, a warning to the stars. This place is no longer yours to take. The sanctuary had no walls, but it had strength, not in steel, but in spirit. In orbit, the hunter ship received its last report. More Alari had arrived. The numbers were growing. The commander slammed his fist. Then we burn it all. He turned to his team. Prepare the drop pods. We end this rebellion. And we take her head. But down on the forest floor, Talene stood at the center of her people, not caged, not afraid, not alone. Let them come, she whispered. This is the day I stop running. The stars above Lorax 7 looked quiet, but Talene knew better. She stood barefoot in the red grass, her eyes scanning the sky. The other Alari waited behind her, young and old, some trained, some still learning to breathe without fear. Tonight, no one ran. Tonight they stood. Grant walked up beside her, rifle on his back, hand on her shoulder. You sure about this? He asked quietly. Talene nodded once. I have lived my whole life being chased. If I die today, I want to face the sky, not the dirt. Grant looked at the torchlights flickering around the sanctuary. Then he looked at her, strong, proud, unshaken. Then we make today the day. They learn who they're hunting. Far above, inside a black warship, the hunter commander prepared his team. Drop in silent. Surround them. Take the woman alive. Burn the rest. No survivors? A young hunter asked. The commander growled. No witnesses. They dropped fast, black pods falling like silent meteors. But the jungle was no longer sleeping. It was watching. The first pod landed near the east ridge. The grass was still. Too still. The hunter stepped forward and vanished into a hole filled with stone spikes hidden by vines. A second pod hit by the river. The hunter stepped out, only to be swarmed by vines, alive with heat. The forest fought back. By the time the commander's pod landed in the center, he found nothing but firelight and silence. Then she stepped into view. Talene, alone, unarmed, but her eyes burned like suns. You came for me, she said. The commander raised his gun. You belong to us. No, she whispered. I never did. Suddenly, lights flared from the trees. Alari emerged, dozens of them in silent formation. Children held stone balls. Elders stood behind flame pits. The youngest crouched in the shadows, ready. And from behind the rocks, Grant appeared. You made one mistake, he called out. You thought prey couldn't learn. The hunters opened fire. The jungle exploded. Talene moved like wind and flame. She darted between trees, dodging beams, leading the attackers into narrow paths. Every turn, another trap. A stun pulse hit a hunter from the side. Another slipped into a water pit and never came back out. Grant covered the eastern line, his shots clean and sharp. He didn't need to protect her now. He just needed to fight beside her. And she moved like something born to defend, not with hate, but with purpose. The commander broke through the line, face twisted with rage. He found Talene standing at the cliff's edge. "I will drag you back in chains," he snarled. Talene stood tall. "Try," he charged. She closed her eyes, raised her hands, the heat from her palms cracked the air. A ring of fire rose around her. The commander stumbled, blinded, and when he opened his eyes, she was no longer there. Only Grant stood behind him. "You lose." One final shot. The commander fell. Silence. Then cheers. The fire dimmed. The Alari stepped, out into the open, alive, whole, free. Later that night, they gathered in the circle again. But this time, not for fear, for celebration. Talene sat at the fire's center, her hand wrapped gently in Grant's. An elder stepped forward and placed a woven crown of glowing vines on her head. "You are no longer the hunted," she said. "You are the flame that will light the way for others." Talene looked at the faces around her. She stood. "I am Talene of the Alari," she said, "and this land is our sanctuary. If others are lost, bring them here. If others are scared, teach them here. If others are hunted, stand with them here." The jungle echoed with the sound of Alari voices. Together, united. Grant leaned close. "You've changed," he whispered. She smiled. "No, I've returned to who I was meant to be." The next morning, Talene walked alone through the forest. Birds chirped. Leaves danced. She touched a tree and whispered, "Thank you for hiding me when I was weak. Now I protect you, while I am strong." Back at the sanctuary, children played again. Homes stood taller, and on a new stone near the fire circle, a message was carved. We were not made to be hunted. We were made to grow. Underneath, in smaller letters, Talene, first flame of the sanctuary final scene, a voice. Across the stars, a distant station picks up a faint signal. A human trader listens, curious. The voice is clear, soft, and full of strength. "If you are hunted, if you are lost, there is a place for you. We are not prey anymore. We are the forest. We are the flame. We are free." They chased her like an animal. But she rose as something greater. Because one human chose to help her, and together, they built a world no hunter could burn.